Good morning and welcome to today's Board of Commissioners zoning hearing this May 17th, 2022. Providing our invocation today is Ms. Reverend Joya Adams of Bethany United Methodist Church. After she provides the invocation, I'll go ahead and lead us in the pledge. All of you who are willing and able, please stand.
Okay. Let us pray. Holy One, we ask your blessings on the people who have been called to lead the community in which we all live and work and play. We pray especially this day for the Board of Commissioners. Help them as leaders to not ask first, how do we fix this? But instead, what do we need to learn? How might we need to change? And to whom do we need to listen? Help those gathered here to speak on their perspectives on zoning matters, to ask the same questions. Remind us, O God, because we all forget from time to time, especially in the noisiness of what passes for political debate today, that we are not only leaders, but also servants, and that it is our responsibility to serve the common good of all. Give these commissioners courage to make just decisions that increase well-being for all in Cobb County. Remind them that no matter where we live, everyone is our neighbor, our sibling, and that throughout the ages, prophets have called the leaders of the people to respect and protect the least of those among us, our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no homes, those who are ill in body, mind, or spirit, the strangers and immigrants in our midst, those who live on the margins, those who are alone, those who are forgotten. Grant them and us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak out when it is time to speak out, and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. May they and we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and by the spirit of love. This we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend, for that wonderful invocation. Our meeting is now officially called to order. I will turn things over to John Peterson, our zoning manager, to walk us through today's agenda.
Thank you and good morning. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When each case is called, we would ask that the applicant please stand up and raise their hand to show that they are in attendance. Then after that, we're going to call for anyone here who is opposed to that case. We would also ask that the opposition also please stand up and raise their hand so they can be counted for the record. Then after recognizing the applicant and any opposition, both parties will be asked to come forward and be sworn in. The applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if anyone, will testify second. It's important to note that each side gets 10 minutes to state their case or concerns. There's not a rebuttal process, and there's not a process to reserve your time. So you want to convey all your information to the board within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if there's more than one person wishing to speak on a case, you may want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you don't want to cover the same information over and over. After that, the board will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion or comments, they may ask one of the parties to come back to the front for additional comments or questions. And after that, the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the matter at hand. On today's printed agenda, there are 3 cases that have been withdrawn without prejudice, and these cases will not be heard. First case is rezoning case Z19 of 2022, New Buddies LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice. Next case is SLEP 7 of 2022, Broward Development. This case was withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard. Last case that's been withdrawn is other business item number 12 of 2022, Reflection Luxury Homes. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been either continued or held by the Plan Commission of the staff. First case is rezoning case Z78 of 2021, St. Benedict's Episcopal School. This case was held by the Board of Commissioners until the June 21st, 2022 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So Z78 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z83 of 2021, St. Burke. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the June 7th, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z83 of 2021 will not be heard today. SLEP 11 of 2021, St. Benedict's Episcopal School. This case was held by the Board of Commissioners until the June 21st, 2022 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So SLEP 11 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z7 of 2022, KM Homes. This case was continued by the staff until the June 7th, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z7 of 2022 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z20 of 2022, Francisco Padilla. This case was continued by the staff until the June 7th, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z20 of 2022 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z21 of 2022, Francisco Padilla. This case was continued by the staff until the June 7th, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z21 of 2022 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z24 of 2022, Davis Enterprises LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the June 7th, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z24 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z26 of 2022, Duke Realty Limited Partnership. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the July 5th, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z26 of 2022 will not be heard today. SLEP 5 of 2022, Parallel Towers 3 LLC, also known as Parallel Infrastructure LLC. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the June 7th, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLEP 5 of 2022 will not be heard today. LUP 8 of 2022, Donna Jordan. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the June 7th, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 8 of 2022 will not be heard today. Other business item number 15 of 2022, Mountain Prize, Inc. This case was continued by the staff until the June 21st, 2022 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 15 of 2022 will not be heard today. Other business item number 22 of 2022, Robert A. Kerr and Rachel Kerr. This case was continued by staff until the June 21st, 2022 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 22 of 2022 will not be heard today. I would like to ask the people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn your cell phone on mute. When the phones ring, they do interfere with the broadcast and the presentations. Any person wishing to speak before the Board of Commissioners must file a campaign contribution disclosure statement. If they made a campaign contribution totaling $250 or more to a current member of the Board of Commissioners within the last 2 years. Additional information about this requirement is located on the table in the back of the room. And I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to its due date. Any information submitted to the board after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
All right.
Cobb County Board of Commissioners, zoning hearing consent agenda for May 17th, 2022. First case on consent is rezoning case Z23, Perimeter Construction Group LLC. Request rezoning from R30 to R20 for a single-family residential subdivision in land lot 586 of the 19th District. The property is located on the north side of Moon Road, west of Florence Road. Staff recommends approval of Z23 to the R20 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated April 25th, 2022. Number two, no mass grading on the property during development and construction except for public rights-of-way, utilities, and building pads. Number three, subdivision sign permitted to be a shingle hanging type sign to be approved by the district commissioner. And number four, staff comments and recommendations. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z23?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed.
John, I just have a couple of items to update on that one as well. To revise the stipulations of the letter of agreeable conditions from Kevin Moore dated April 25th, 2022. to revise item number 11 to reflect that the 40-foot rear buffer is to include the property of the Bashirs. Do I need to spell the name for you?
Yes.
Okay, and that would be Beshers. And also to amend item number 12B to reflect that sidewalks are to be on both sides of the road within the development. And all other staff recommendations and comments not otherwise in conflict,
Okay.
including the Planning Commission recommendations.
Yes, is the attorney here for this application? Okay, are you agreeable to the stipulations as read?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
All right. Next case is rezoning case Z25. Healy Weatherholtz Properties request a rezoning from CF, R80, R40 to NRC for neighborhood retail in land lots 73 and 81 of the First District. The property is located on the west side of Johnson Ferry Road and the north side of Paper Mill Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z25 to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated April 27th, 2022. Number two, site plan received by the zoning division on March 3rd, 2022, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number three, adherence to Johnson Ferry Road design guidelines for all future additions and/or redevelopments to the site. Number four, variances as identified in the zoning division comments. Number five, fire department comments and recommendations. Number six, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Number seven, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. And number eight, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z25?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Next case is SLUP 6, B&E TX LLC, request a special land use permit for a climate-controlled self-service storage facility in land lot 125 of the 20th District. The property is located on the south side of Cobb Parkway, the east side of Jim Owens Road, and the north side of New Rutledge Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of SLEP 6, subject to the following conditions. Number one, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated April 25th, 2022, on file with the zoning division with the following changes. A, item number 8, revised to read, the 20-foot landscape buffer along New Rutledge Road to be perpetually maintained and replaced in the event of any damage, infestation, or storm loss. Number 2, all staff comments and recommendations will apply and will supersede any the applicant's stated conditions or comments in the event of any conflict. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to SLEP 6?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Moving into other business items on the consent agenda. Item number 20 of 2022 is to consider a stipulation amendment for B&E TX LLC regarding rezoning application number 423 of 1985 for property located on the easterly side of Jim Owens Road and the northerly side of Rutledge Road in land lot 125 of the 20th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to Exhibit B, received by the Zoning Division on April 12th, 2022. And I'm going to change number 2 that's here. It did say water and sewer comments, but those have been addressed now. So I'm going to replace number 2 with a revised site plan dated May 16th, 2022. And number 3, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to the business item number 20 of 2022?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed.
John, excuse me, back on SLUP 6, we need to make sure that we, in the notes, include the site plan that was dated May 16th of 2022
Okay.
instead of the April 12th.
Okay. Got that. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is other business, item number 21 of 2022, which is to consider a site plan and stipulation amendment for Air Essence, Inc. regarding rezoning application Z155 of 2004 for property located on the north and west sides of Lake Drive, south of Jamerson Road, in land lot 86 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Exhibit B, which includes a site plan labeled Exhibit 1, received by the Zoning Division, April 12, 2022. Number 2, stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. And number 3, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 21 of 2022?
We got one.
Okay. We do have one person opposed, Madam Chair and Board, so we'll pull that off consent and put it in its regular order. Okay, item number 23 of 2022 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Hal Coop LLC regarding rezoning application Z50 of 1997 and number 213 of 1983 for property located on the north side of Bear Creek Parkway, west of Bear Creek Boulevard, and land lots 643 and 644 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to Exhibit B received by the Zoning Division on April 12, 2022, excluding all the signage and elevations submitted on April 12, 2022. Number 2, revised signage and elevations contained in the email from John Peterson to the Board of Commissioners dated May 11, 2022. And number 3, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 23?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. And that completes the printed consent agenda, Madam Chair and Board.
Thank you. Are there any additions or changes to be made? Okay, Commissioner Sheffield?
Actually, going back to Z23
Yes, ma'am.
in revising the letter of agreeable conditions, item number 3, to include the final elevations to be approved by the district commissioner.
Okay. Is the applicant comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The applicant nodded, for those of you viewing from home and in the audience, he nodded that he's in agreement. Are there any other changes? Commissioner Gambrell?
John, can we see if anyone is here in opposition to LUP 9?
Okay. LUP 9, Still Family Farm LLC, requests a temporary land use permit to allow agritourism, nature education, and conservation programs in land lot 439 of the 19th District. The property is located on in land lot 439 of the 19th District, located on the north side of Macklin Road, east of Macklin Circle. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 9?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed.
So John, with no one here opposed, I would like to add LUP 9 to the consent agenda. But my motion will be with all comments and recommendations per staff.
And those are the ones that are in the printed analysis?
In the printed agenda,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Those in favor of adding it to the consent agenda? Okay. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Commissioner Burrow?
Thank you. I would like to add other business number 9 to consent with some additional stipulations you have to read in the record, and then
Yep.
I'll add.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, other business item number 9 of 2022 is to consider a stipulation site plan amendment for Vanderland Industries, Inc. regarding rezoning application Z20 of 2015 for property located on the east side of Chastain Meadows Parkway and the west side of Bells Ferry Road in land lots 498, 499, 510 of the 16th District. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 9?
No.
The director says there's no one opposed.
Okay.
You're right, okay. I would like to make a motion to approve other business number 9 or add to the consent agenda with the following additional stipulations. Exhibit B, which includes site plan labeled as Exhibit 1, received by Zoning Division March 3rd, 2022. Stormwater management comments contained in other business packet. Water and sewer comments contained in other business packet. Fire Department, comments contained in other business packet. Cobb DOT, comments contained in other business packet. A letter from Kevin Moore dated April 13th, which includes site plan marked as Exhibit A, maximum impervious surface not to exceed 30.3%, maximum height of all buildings and parking deck not to exceed 50 feet, addition of traffic study analysis of intersection of Chastain Meadows Parkway at Chastain Road prior to an LDP being issued. All previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. And for the record, I would like to include the traffic study submitted by the applicant and the email from Amy Diaz with the summary of that traffic study dated 5/12/2022.
All right. Is there a second?
And I have all that written out. Thanks.
I'll second it for discussion. And for our zoning manager or commissioner, there's another other business item, item 21. That was, I believe was pulled off the consent agenda. Yes, can you talk about how those may or may not be related?
They're not related.
Okay,
Did not.
okay.
No.
So there's no concern then with us putting this on consent? Okay.
No, and these were all discussed with the applicant and Bells Ferry Civic, and they are all in agreement.
All right, just checking. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, is there any other discussion? I'll call the question. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Commissioner Sheffield?
John, also if you would call for any in opposition to Z27?
Yes, ma'am. Rezoning case Z27, Broward Development, request a rezoning from GC and R20 to LI and R20 for a climate-controlled storage facility and a single-family residential lot on land lots 405 and 498 of the 18th District. The property is located on the northeast side of Mapleton Parkway and on the southwest side of Cardell Circle, north of Honeycutt Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z27?
No.
The director says anyone opposed.
Thank you. Since there is no opposition, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to include Z27 to the consent agenda with the following conditions. The zoning category to be deleted to CRC and R20. Access hours to be from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. The submittal one traffic study to be submitted during plan review. The Mapleton Parkway design guidelines must be met during plan review. A landscape review committee is to be established to include the applicant, the county arborist, and representatives of the Mapleton Improvement Coalition with final landscaping approval by the district commissioner. And finally, all other staff recommendations and comments not otherwise in conflict.
I'll second it. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll call the question. The vote passes 5-0. Are there any other changes to consent, commissioners? All right, with that, I move that we approve the consent agenda as revised.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? I'll call the question. And the vote passes 5-0.
Okay, and the next case, Madam Chair and Board, has a companion special land use permit case with it. Would it be the Board's wish to hear both cases together and just make separate motions on both cases? Okay. Okay, next case is rezoning case Z48 of 2021, Ray Murphy. Request a rezoning from GC to LI for automobile storage yards and record services for damaged or confiscated vehicles in land lots 154, 155 of the 17th District. The property is located on the northwest side of Austell Road at the terminus of Austell Circle. Together with its companion special land use permit number 3, Ray Murphy requests a special land use permit for an automobile storage yard and record service for damaged or confiscated vehicles in land lots 154, 155 of the 17th District. The property is located on the northwest side of Austell Road at the terminus of Austell Circle. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to SLUP 3 or rezoning case Z48 of 2021?
No.
The record shows no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in? And Madam Chair and Board, while she's coming forward, we do have someone from Code Enforcement here if y'all have any questions about this case.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Vicki Murphy Norris, and I'm representing my dad, Ray Murphy, with two applications, Z48, 2021, and SLUP 3, 2021. This journey began March 1st of 2021, and I have navigated the website, and I have navigated so many different areas of the different departments that we have in the county. We initially had the request from the county to rezone due to major code enforcement problems, violations that were very extensive and had not been taken care of for a few years. Just going to give you a little bit of a rundown because it's taken this long to get to this point, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I sent a packet in a blue folder to Commissioner Gambrell and then Madam Chair Cupid, just to review some information that I had put together. And again, it's only a little tiny portion of what is involved in the rezoning process and the SLUP process. I actually had very little communication with staff. Emails were not returned on most of them, so that did trigger me having to go ahead, dig in, and just get everything that I needed to get to proceed. In the packet, I'm just going to read the letter that I sent to give you just a rundown. I'm representing my dad, Ray Murphy, with the rezoning application and special land use permit. This is requested by Cobb County. The rezoning of the property is the direct result of the loss of the grandfather clause, resulting in code enforcement violations. The new zoning code of LI allows for low-intensity automotive repair and service, section 134-230. The present zoning classification is GC, general commercial, that allows the service uses which are oriented towards automobile businesses that are land intensive, section 134-16240. The business that is currently located and operating much less intensive in nature than both of GC and LI. Without any complaints from surrounding residents and/or patrons, the business is presently operating as an automobile storage yard and wrecker service, section 134-1. The property acquired many code enforcement violations. These code enforcement issues have been resolved. The code enforcement department has documented and actually helped me get to the point that we're at today. If it wasn't for code enforcement guiding me and giving me direction and meeting me at the property every 2 weeks for the guidance and the support, I don't know if I would have come this far with it. But code enforcement, big help in that regards. I put together some information regarding the opinions of the staff that ended up on my application. When you have your application packet, in the very back page, it states the staff analysis and recommendations made by the planning and zoning staff are only the opinions of the planning and zoning staff and are by no means the final decision. Cobb County Board of Commissioners makes the final decision on all rezoning and land use permits at an advertised public hearing. One other thing that I located, which weighs heavy on me, The Planning Commission hearings and recommendations have some of the highest impacts on quality of life in the county of any public body. Their job is to make recommendations on rezoning requests, special land use requests, and other businesses, and to send those recommendations to the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, who make the final decision. The Planning Commission is described on the Cobb County website as follows: established as an advisory committee to assist the governing authority, the Board of Commissioners, in the administration and enforcement of the Zoning and Planning Act, and to prescribe the duties and functions of such commission. The full duties and functions of this commission are contained in Cobb County Zoning Ordinance Section 3-28-9, Section 134-61. So, with that being said, the opinions vary. They differ every single day depending on what your frame of mind is and what you're focused on. In my packet, the issue after we had zoning taken care of with code enforcement, we needed a parking plan. Now, the parking plan that we came up with is documented here, and it's very, very difficult to come up with a parking plan for any towing and wrecker business. You have to have the state, the magistrate court's office process paperwork, and some of those issues lie on the magistrate's desk with processing paperwork. They are behind right now. So when you park a car in the wrecker service, you can't just pull it right in and stack it on top of each other. They have to have dates on them, and they have to have proper processes basically through the state. There are other properties that I just wanted to show you the difficulty in how to create a parking plan. This is another, that's another business in Cobb County. And there's two or three basically that I won't waste your time with, but it is very difficult to come up with an organized parking plan. The other thing that was a big stickler for the lot was creating a buffer or having an established buffer around the property. I have pictures that I gave to you guys in a packet. I'm not going to go through all of those, but you can see that at the very beginning, this is where we start, and then I go all the way around the property. The front side of the property and the side of the property towards the residential apartment complex is from the front to the corner and all the way back down on the other side of our fence. These, I went and measured the I guess the footage in between the trees. We have 10 foot back from the fence and then 20 foot back. And they're staggered, 10 foot, 20 foot, 10 foot, 20 foot, and they are well-established trees that have been there since early 80s. We have a development that came in right behind the property, townhomes, I do believe, and this is close to my property because you drive back to the end of the property and you see no buffer with the brand-new townhomes that went up. This is pictures of property, the daycare center that is there next to the townhomes, and that's their buffer system. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me and guide me into the right direction. I cannot say enough about code enforcement. They are top-notch. If you contact anybody in code enforcement, they will call you back or they will email you immediately. And I just can't say enough for them. Another thing about the buffer system is, of course, with our GIS maps, in the summertime, it's all trees. All you see are trees. In the wintertime, you see, the disarray of no buffer. Now, I have one thing that I wanted to show you. I got 12 seconds. I bet it's in here. I'm a mess, aren't I? Anyway, it is a picture of code enforcement who came out. I'm out of time, sorry.
Your time's up.
Okay, sorry about that. I have presented this so many times, I don't know what all to present now.
Thank you. Again, is there anyone here in opposition? Seeing none, I'll turn things over to you, Commissioner Gamble. Yep.
Thank you, and I would like to ask Code Enforcement Yulissa Foster to come up. She has a presentation, and I disagree with a few things that Ms. Murphy has said, because staff has gone above and beyond with this applicant to help resolve these issues, not only from Code Enforcement, but from our Fire Marshal's office, getting the drone out to help fly over the site so that we could get a top-down view. So I'd like to have Yulissa present.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Yulissa Foster, and I'm from Cobb County Code Enforcement. I've been inspecting 1818 Austell Road, American Eagle Towing, since November 10th, 2021. And since the beginning up until current, there has been a significant amount of progress. Going back to where Ms. Norris was talking about the buffer area, at the front of the property to the right where the apartments are, there is a room for them. There's an empty space due to a tree die. There is space for them to plant another, at least 1 or 2 trees with the pre-existing buffer. Also, I measured their fence at 6.5 feet. Their fence can go up to 8 feet. The back of the property is completely covered. There's the buffer area that's already existing. The apartments would not be able to see onto the property from the back, which is good. Let's see what else. Okay, so I'm going to show you some photos from when I started. When I started at the property, it looked like a junkyard. There was a lot of trash, debris, junk vehicles that were stored there for many years. There was a good amount of vehicles that belonged to Mr. Murphy that was removed from the property. Okay, so as I went out there in November, I came back in December, and that's when Alberto, who's the business owner, started making progress and started to clean up the property, and also he started to execute, adding crush and run to the property and coming up with a parking plan.
Excuse me, Yulissa, for one moment. I think I see Commissioner Gamble signaling if we.
Can we see the slides on our screens?
Are you not seeing it?
No.
Just don't watch it.
We're all kind of squinting.
Yes.
Yeah, we have.
We don't have them.
Oh, y'all have them, but we don't? Go sit over there, Kelly. I'm kidding.
It is. The
Dell's-
screen just came on.
It's trying.
Your presentation isn't up yet, but I think the computers are just booting up.
We have,
Are you still up?
all 3 of us have.
But we're blank.
Why don't we take a brief recess until 9:45 and address this? Yep, I agree. Thank you and welcome back to our Board of Commissioners hearing. I'm going to turn things back over to Yulissa Foston with our Code Enforcement Division, who was presenting on our other business item.
Okay, now we can.
We're in business.
Okay, good.
I started inspecting a property around November of 2021, and the property looked like a junkyard. I observed debris, trash, and vehicles that have been stored at the property for a significant amount of time. I went back in December, and I observed trash and debris being removed. Back in November, I walked the property with business owner Alberto and Ms. Norris and explained all of the violations to them. We made a list, and they started correcting the violations and also coming up with a parking plan. Magistrate had got a new system, and their manager contacted Magistrate Court for assistance, and she did receive training on that system in order to get the vehicles processed so that way they're able to have legal custody of the vehicle. Right, and I did follow up with Magistrate Court, and currently, due to them being short-staffed, they're not processing as many cases. But they have complied. American Eagle Towing has complied with sending the work over for filing to the courthouse. They're just waiting on the staff to process the paperwork. I went back to the property in January. The property's checked every 2 weeks, but the property does look a lot cleaner. There's been a lot of vehicles that have been removed. As from November up until January 28th, 54 vehicles were removed, and the property looks a whole lot cleaner. In February, they had more vehicles removed, and the property continued to improve. In March, Alberto and Ms. Norris provided their parking plan to get approval from the board, and the property still was observed clean, and there was also vehicles continued to be removed from the property. My final inspection was on April 22nd, and the quality, the property conditions continue to improve, and they're still making improvements. I do monitor the property when I'm not scheduled for inspections. I'll come and sit across the street of the neighborhood, and I do observe that when they're not busy with towing, that there are workers actively walking around a lot, making sure it's clean outside, blowing leaves. I look at traffic. They don't stop traffic. They're not creating issue with noise. We are definitely impressed with the property and satisfied with the effort they have made to come in compliance with Cobb County Code Enforcement. And, excuse me, I did go out one more time in May 9th. As of May 9th, 90 vehicles have been removed from the property, and I did observe another company towing 2 vehicles. There wasn't any noise or no disturbance with traffic. As soon as the tow truck arrived, they went onto the lot immediately and did not stop any traffic on Allstar Road. Do you guys have any questions?
Yulissa, could you talk about the magistrate court process and what we found when reviewing those documents and why the delay?
There was a delay. You know, COVID played a major part. Some of these vehicles have been sitting there for 2 years due to the court closing. But during that time frame of the courts being closed, magistrate had a new system. So the paperwork that was previously submitted was not processed correctly due to the new system, and there was an issue with training. So as soon as we learned of that issue, the manager went to the magistrate court and received the training and worked with the magistrate court on resubmitting the paperwork. When I contacted magistrate court, I was advised that they currently have 1 employee that's handling the counter, answering the phones, plus processing all of the cases that's coming in, and that's why there's a hold on cases being processed.
Thank you.
I just Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner
I just
Sheffield.
have a quick question. For the vehicles that were removed, were those all junk vehicles?
Those, all those vehicles were not junk. I looked at a lot of the vehicles. Some of them are junk, and some of them are because the vehicle was towed and the owner did not come back for the vehicle. So when that happens, they have to file paperwork with the court to get ownership of the vehicle, and then sometimes they also auction vehicles.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Boston? Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I do have questions for the applicant. Yep. May the applicant please approach? Thank you. Can you describe what activity is taking place on this site?
Yes, ma'am, the towing service,
Okay, and this is for, go ahead, ma'am.
they get calls from abandoned vehicles from in apartment complexes and other areas, and they tow the car to the lot and notify the owner. If the owner is not available, or if they cannot locate an owner, that's when they file paperwork and it goes to the magistrate.
Okay. Are there any vehicles that are on the property that have been in an accident?
Yes.
There are, okay.
Mhm.
What type of environmental protections do you have for the property?
In regards to,
Any leakage of
Oh, no, ma'am.
fluids from the vehicles?
no, ma'am.
No, nothing for leachate?
Ms. Foston confirmed that when we walked the property.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, unless any other commissioners have questions for the applicant. Okay, I'll turn things over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you. And with that, I would like to make a motion to approve Z48 of 2021 with deletion to the NRC category, subject to the following: for this use and owner only, non-conforming use to adhere to Section 13431 and not to cease or fall out of compliance for a period no longer than 6 months, no automotive repair or sales. The final parking plan, which was submitted on April 20th of 2022, correct, John? Shall be approved and shall be in effect no later than May 17th of 2023. The final landscape plan to be approved by the district commissioner in the next 60 days. And this landscape buffer can be a combination of fencing, landscaping, or supplemental plantings, and then to be completed from 6 months from date of approval. Fire Department comments and recommendations, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, and DOT comments and recommendations.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Commissioner Gambrill, also the storing of tires, has that been addressed? I don't know if the photo that we saw were just junk tires, or if they're actually storing tires on the property.
That's a great question. No, they are not. I'm going to ask Yulissa to come up.
Okay.
The photos of the tires were the junk and everything that was stored at the property at the beginning in November. Now the property is completely clean. There's, they are aware that they're not allowed to store anything outside. They can't have trash on the property or anything.
Okay. Do we have no storage of outside items? No storage of merchandise or items outside?
Well, it's not merchandise because they don't sell
not
that.
merchandise,
I guess John or Mr. Rowling, should we further limit it to tower and wrecking service only? I know that's part of the motion to this use and purpose, but do we need to further tighten that
Well,
down?
in order to address Commissioner Sheffield's concern, maybe we could add a condition that says no outdoor storage or display of merchandise except for the confiscated or wrecked cars.
I'll accept what Mr. Peterson said as part of my motion. And then also, I know this was put on underneath the SLUP application that is along with this, but the wrecker service hours to be Monday through Sunday from 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. So I'd like to add that to my motion as well.
With reference to the chairwoman's comment, is there any issue with the runoff or leachate from the cars?
And concerning Chair Cupid's comment, there is a comment within our Stormwater Management Department's comments that Commissioner Gamber referenced in her motion that states that any vehicle that may be leaking fluids due to damage must be placed within a designated area to capture and treat any potential pollutant discharge due to stormwater runoff. So that's covered in the
Okay.
stormwater comments.
I didn't see that.
Excuse me, Commissioner.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate Stormwater putting that clause in, and I'm sorry, you can have a seat. But I find it extremely difficult to believe that, considering the circumstances of this application, that each vehicle is going to be assessed for its condition to ensure that there's no leakage of fluid. I think that the applicant has taken stellar efforts to clean up this property, especially in light of the initial pictures. But I think it's time for the commissioners to consider whether or not this use is appropriate for this community. If you were to look at your zoning packet and look at the site, not necessarily the site plan, but even if you just look at the zoning divisions slide that shows the surrounding uses, on 3 sides of this property, there are people living there. There are residential uses. Then across the street is a daycare. If there's ever a time for us to take into consideration the residents of this community and the opportunity to move this area forward, it's when a zoning application comes before us. I cannot perceive in any community where there is a residential use that surrounds a commercial area where this use would be appropriate. And I think, considering the way that the property fell into such state of disrepair, I think there was an utter disregard for the potential environmental impacts that this site could potentially still pose to the surrounding residents. And I didn't hear anything, no initiative for those uses to be elevated, for those impacts to be elevated were this zoning application to be approved. Staff recognized in their assessment of this application that it can have negative impacts to the surrounding communities, financially and from a use perspective. I cannot perceive how this is an appropriate use today for us protecting the health, safety, and welfare of all Cobb County residents. Whether you live in unincorporated Cobb or Lost Mountain, East Cobb, I cannot perceive any of us as commissioners having this site next to where we live unless there are significant conditions to ensure nothing is going to impede our property values nothing is going to impede our quiet enjoyment, and nothing is going to impede our health. I would not approve this if it were next door to me, and I'm not going to approve it because it's next door to these residents that have had to deal with this not the applicant, because it appears there's another person using it, but have had to deal with this, and it's unfortunate that residents too often don't have their environmental health concerns prioritized, who may be of a certain income level or live in a certain area of town. But I think we as a board can make sure that we do that. And I think approving this today would undermine the base level of consideration that we give to how people should live in our county. I cannot approve this application, and I would beseech you as commissioners, if this opportunity is before us today, to provide a use that is more compatible with the residential community around it, for us to be brave enough to do that for these residents.
We're looking at an NRC though, correct? So if this is here, like I would imagine there are other ways to address some of the other environmental concerns that we have about this.
There are a range of uses that can be provided other than this one. You are not obligated to have this. And I'm not looking at letters on a page. I'm looking at what people live by and what they have to deal with every day. You have a number of vehicles coming in off a record truck. You have it so much so that if you look at that parking picture, can you imagine all those vehicles potentially moving in and out of those sites every day? And then when I saw how the vehicles were stacked, if we can show the parking image.
Do we have it?
It's in our, in our packet, there's a parking image that shows vehicles being parked back to back to back in several columns of threes, which tells me a lot of vehicles will not be moving. So we are potentially having vehicles sitting there growing in a state of disrepair because they're not moving. And if they're not moving, and if all of those vehicles are being moved, you can't tell me that's not impacting the quiet enjoyment of the people who are there. And I am not hearing enough to say, this is what I'm going to do to mitigate sound, this is what I'm going to do to mitigate sight, beyond just planting in that one area, because even the image of the trees that I saw, even if it has leaves, these are very tall trees. The line of sight where people are going to see directly into this yard. I'm not seeing enough, and especially the environmental concerns. I'm looking on my phone. There are other cases in other communities where the concerns of the council were for the environmental considerations of the communities that were adjacent to it. The EPA even has a 9-page document, and this is not necessarily a record or a salvage yard, but it talks about vehicles left in a state of disrepair that are next to residential communities, and a laundry list of actions that should be taken to make sure fluids are not leaking into adjacent areas. Give me something to tell me that you're going to be mindful of that. So to me, just telling me what could be an NRC, LI, those letters don't mean much to me when I look at what I know is going to be the impact to people living there. I can't support this application.
At this stage, how many vehicles are allowed on the lot?
Currently, there is no restriction, but that will be restricted when the parking plan comes into play.
Okay.
Which we're going to give them a year to come into compliance with due to the magistrate court and getting everything turned over to that effect. How many, John, do you know off the top of your head how many are on the parking plan? I didn't count.
313.
313.
Yes, Commissioner Burrow?
Go ahead, go ahead.
And how long has this been at this site in operation? As GC, I guess, was operating originally?
From my research, Commissioner Burrow's been here for at least 3 decades, but maybe 4 decades. It's been here for a long time.
Not that business, you mean, just that
Not the business,
category.
but the
Okay,
use.
the use.
And then, John, to add on to that, the daycare that is in the O&I, do we know when that was constructed?
Commissioner Gamber, I have no idea when that was built.
Commissioner Burrow, are you done?
Mm-mm.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Well,
Hey,
I'm waiting for him to answer.
Commissioner Burrow, the tax record shows built in 1973.
Can we then also see the tax records of when the O&I was built, please?
Oh,
I thought that was the O&I.
No, that was the GC.
I think.
What was the date on that?
The record service came in 1973.
Oh, okay. $1973, and then the O&I, the daycare was when?
They're both in 73?
No.
It showed 1923 on the GC.
Oh. Okay, my other question is, this was a result initially of code enforcement, and they have made substantial improvements to clean this up. Have there been any other complaints since this has been, since you've been out there and this has been cleaned up? Okay, thank you.
We do have a resident who did send in an email in opposition, and I'll acknowledge that. And I'll just say, sorry, I don't want to dominate this, but I'm so disappointed that sometimes I see us deny zoning because you have an intense residential use that's too intense for another residential use. But somehow this is appropriate next to where people live. I can't reconcile it.
I have a question. In the case that this application is denied, would the business still be operating there? What would happen?
If this case is denied by the Board of Commissioners, then they would have to cease operations from the property based on your decision. And if it is denied, they do have an appeal period that they can go through to appeal that. So
Got it.
we would just have to see where that ends up.
We can also, instead of denying it, we can give them a use, because if they lost their grandfather status, I don't know if GC is, I presume is not appropriate for this area. We can give them a zoning that they can use where they can have a myriad of other potential uses that are appropriate for this site. So this is not the only potential use here. You have an area that's an older area where perhaps there was a time where this was appropriate. This is not appropriate today. It's not.
And staff's recommendation on the NRC was the recommendation, but with the NRC, this would be a permitted use with the NRC.
Based on the deletion and the stipulations, it would be.
Unless you don't have to approve every use within a zoning category. You can make exceptions, or you can say certain things aren't used. But staff said this was okay, but let me also read you staff comments. It is staff's opinion that the existing use and proposed use could have a significant adverse effect on the neighborhood in which it is located. Let me read another staff opinion that's in here. The proposed use could result in a nuisance as defined under state law. They do provide, however, adherence to county regulations and conditions upon approval could minimize the chance of the use resulting in a nuisance. But staff is telling you this could be a nuisance. Staff is telling you this could have a significant adverse effect, but yet they still approve it, which again, sorry, John, and sorry, Jessica, but it ticks me off here. It ticks me off that there are greater protections for other communities. This is not an equal playing field when it comes to how zoning staff provides opinions to protect all people who live here. For staff to acknowledge this in their comments and still to approve it bothers me when I see staff disapprove uses, again, when you have a Z15 next to a Z30. I don't understand it. Help me here. Help me here. Help me understand why this is more appropriate and more fitting when I sit here and hear residential uses, single family uses of lesser density next to higher density areas. Tell me why this is more appropriate than those. I can't take it. I don't even understand it. Especially when I see these comments and staff comments and I still see recommend approval. Why?
Madam Chair, we have to deal with the case before us. And I know you're upset, but comparing other cases, residential uses or whatever, we need to discuss this case before us. And-
Commissioner, don't do that to me.
No, I'm just saying.
Don't do that to me when you denied an apartment in District 4 because you didn't want the impact of what the commissioner did in District 4 to impact your district. Use the same bar. Don't do that to me.
No, well, I was voting on the case before us.
And there have been other cases that you've denied in other districts because you were concerned about the impact that decision would have in your district. So don't tell me here to only look at this case when I sit here, zoning meeting after zoning meeting, and listen to how we accommodate a higher bar for other areas and an extremely lower bar for others.
Question. If this were an NRC surrounded by the residential, is that setting a different precedent? Is that something that we see in other areas? Is that too high of intensity to be?
Well, the NRC is one of the lower commercial categories we have.
Right.
And we have many above that, like general commercial, planned shopping center, CRC, regional retail commercial. So it's almost the lowest, except for low-rise office and LRC.
Whatever happens today, I think the EPA or EPD should come on this site and make sure that there, for the 30 years or decades that this site has been here, that there is no contamination going on to the area around it. To me, I think that's the very least those residents around it deserve.
So, John, I don't know if you can answer this, or maybe Yolissa, or I'll call Ms. Murphy up, but my assumption is in order to receive a license, a business license, they have to have inspections by other agencies. Is that correct?
For this type of license, it's just Cobb County. But the staff's okay with Chair Cupid's suggestion that, the county staff could contact EPD or EPA and have them visit the site. We're okay with that condition, if you want to make that a stipulation.
Okay. I would be willing to add that Cobb County staff to work with EPA and EPD for this site. And while I understand, the concern of would you want this in your backyard, this use has been here for almost 4 decades. And it comes down to, do we deny a property owner's right to use their property for a use that they've been doing for 40 years?
I will add to say that's equivalent to me because we've always done it before. That's why we'll do it. At some point, because we've done things one way, doesn't mean it's appropriate to continue that. Also, this is not denying a property owner the right to use their property. It's denying them to use it in the same way that they've used it. We are not zeroing out their economic interest. We're saying their economic interest could be even greater, but at least it's greater from a health, safety, and welfare perspective. The police power of this board to find a use that is more compatible with the residents that live around it. Yes, Commissioner
Is
Braun.
this,
Would you also be willing to add something that code enforcement monitor this on a regular basis to make sure they stay in compliance?
Code enforcement has been monitoring this, and I don't see that changing. They do a great job of keeping watch over these types of issues. I think we also need to point out that, you know, again, if they become non-conforming, they are going to lose their right to use this property. So, you know, there's that clause in there as well. So if the property owner chooses not to be in compliance for the 6 months, which we know Yulissa will catch, they will then lose that right to continue operating as such. Where then I believe it would be more appropriate for the board to take further action from there.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd just like to add, and John, if you can answer, is there a time limit on the SLUP or just the LUP?
For this case, they're applying for a special land use permit, which the board can implement times for the length of time approved. The Planning Commission recommended that the SLUP be approved for a maximum of 24 months.
And that's
The
on
staff
SLUP
recommend-
3?
Yeah, for SLUP 3.
Okay. So what we're looking at is a change in category from LI to NAC, and then also the LUP for 24 months.
Well, it's
Up to
zoning it,
24 months.
zoning to NRC, not a NAC.
I'm sorry, right, to NRC, okay.
And then the Planning Commission recommended the SLUP for 24 months.
Right.
And then Commissioner Sheffield, and I know we don't have the motion on the floor for the SLUP right now, but I'd be willing to take the SLUP down to 12 months. That way, if they're not in conformance with the parking plan, which we're essentially giving them 12 months to come into conformance to, that would put them back in front of the board again.
I see, okay. This one is a little difficult for me, in part because this is right also on the edge of District 4. And I pass this location each time I travel to this office. And in its current state, it looks horrible, and we all agree to that. But additionally, as I drive down Austell Road is one of the main arterial roads in Cobb County. And it connects the residents from District 4, whether you're in Mableton, Austell, et cetera, into towards Windy Hill, 75, et cetera. Over the past year and a half that I've been in office, Austell Road is one of my target corridors to enhance, to turn over, et cetera. There are quite a few homes along that corridor, older homes that are both residential and also commercial. And both are in need of updating. There are an exorbitant number of car-related businesses along Austell Road. Tire shops, oil changes, et cetera, and now and of course the towing and record service. I do also feel that along that side of Austell Road, I would like for it to mirror the east-west connector in Austell Road. And in order to do that, we're going to have to start to see some changes along Austell Road. And I've had numerous conversations with the mayor of Austell, their economic development team, and I see Austell Road being our Concord Road, so to speak, in Smyrna. What we're working on currently as well is a transfer station along Austell Road.
For
And-
transit, not for trash.
I always forget to say that, for transit, a transfer station. So that's going to open up that corridor quite a bit. So I do agree with the chair that it is certainly an opportunity to begin to turn that community over. And while I understand that this business has been here for decades, I think that there is a greater use for the residents of the area, whether they're immediately adjacent to this property, quarter mile, half mile, et cetera. I think there is a higher and better use for that property. I do agree and support changing the category to NRC and moving forward with a 12-month LUP and additional restrictions to the property, limiting the number of vehicles from 313. I'm not sure what would be reasonable or feasible at this time, but I think 313 is quite a bit if it's based on that plan that was shown. It's just, there are too many vehicles there. My concern is that after the dust settles, so to speak, I don't know that I'm really confident that the behavior won't pick up after, we're done past this, because, when I look at the photos that were shown earlier today, it shouldn't require code enforcement to come out and say, this needs to be cleaned up. This is your business. You need to have greater pride in your business. If you don't have pride in your business, therefore you do not have pride in the community in which your business is located. So, for that, it is just, I can support the changing of the category, deleting it to NRC, a 12-month LUP with additional conditions to require or include an environmental check. I don't know what would be sufficient, a quarterly basis, 6 months, et cetera, but that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson?
Thank you. I don't know if this is something we can consider, but potentially a setback on the property from a vantage point on that arterial roadway.
Okay.
I don't know if that's something that has been discussed or looked at.
From the road,
For landscaping purposes.
right, but there's like a little paved area where you can go in, park, and then you go through a fence to get to the vehicles. So I do envision heavy landscaping along the Austell Road and then the supplemental throughout to help make that front entrance look more appealing and start the curb appeal that you're envisioning for the Austell corridor. So as far as setting back the vehicles even further within, John, is that something we can do within modifying the parking plan?
Yes.
So I think NRC is what, a 20-foot buffer?
Yes.
Okay. So would that be,
Yeah, thank you.
okay.
Again, another question I have, and it's for this use, but if they are not parking on a hardened surface, I can't see how you're able to control any potential leakage of fluid. And I don't know, but it's my thought that with the amount of acreage of this site, that they're required to park these vehicles on a hardened surface.
Yeah. And I think at this point, we need to call the applicant up here, because it's my understanding that they started putting down something, so it wouldn't be on dirt. Vicki?
Ms. Murphy, can you approach the podium, please?
As she's walking up for staff, is there not a requirement for this to be on a hardened surface for this acreage?
It should be on a hardened treated surface, correct.
Okay. And just to comport with our, just want to be very clear, to comport with our zoning requirements, this needs to be on a hardened surface.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any plans to pave the lot?
The business owner has already started putting crusher run down, and that was approved by code enforcement. And there are certain sections that are going down.
Thank you. Is crusher run considered a hardened surface?
Not by itself. You know, something would need to be added to it to make it a hardened surface.
No, I don't. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you.
Yolissa, could I ask you to come up, please?
What is required for the hardened surface? What will need to be done?
What would need to be done, as I explained to Alberto, he put down the crush and run, but he's aware that he has to put down a substance to make it a hardened surface, because right now it's not currently a hardened surface.
So then for the applicant to continue with the application or for the LUP to be applied, will they not need to have a hardened surface?
Can you?
What's the protocol? If they need a hardened surface, they don't have a hardened surface, what happens with this applicant?
As far as code enforcement, they would be in violation of parking standards. But if it's approved with the crush and run in the stipulations, then we wouldn't enforce the parking standards, and they would be in compliance with the zoning stipulations.
Okay. So I don't work the magic behind the scenes after we approve a zoning application, but if this is approved, I think there needs to be a high level of confidence that the site is going to be modified such that the parking area will be a hardened surface that complies with our code, or else they will continue to be in violation, which means we will essentially today be approving an application where we know, again, it violates our code. To me, there's just, and I'm sorry, I'm ad-libbing, I don't have any additional questions. To me, it just goes to show, again, the distance of this application from where it should be to comply with our code, and it should be to be able to be adjacent to a residential area where it should be to get to the level of standard that we have for this county.
So I'd like to add and modify the motion. We're going to reduce the number of vehicles to 150. Would that be acceptable? So the parking plan to show no more than 150 vehicles and shall be on a hardened surface. And then also a 20-foot buffer to be on, because they're fenced, so it would be on the interior of the fence. Or I guess a better way to say that no vehicle shall be placed within 20 feet of the property line.
There was a motion, I believe there was a second. Is there any further discussion?
Was there a second on her addition?
Not on the I'm presuming it's a modified
Modified.
motion. Is there a second for that
Second.
modification?
Okay.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
And remember, this is just for Z48 at this point in time.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that the EPA and EPD suggestion was included. Okay.
And again, just for staff's sake, again, I need your help in understanding when staff has 5 questions to answer with respect to a zoning, and the response is adverse to a majority of those, why staff still moves forward with recommendation for that application. I need help to better understand that. There's a motion and a second. We'll call the question. I'm sorry, yes.
Just 2 things, and Chair, I appreciate Jessica Wynn, Community Development. I appreciate your comments today. Situations like this are, as you can understand, difficult for you all as a board as well as for us as staff to consider. I think that one of the unique factors of this is that this is a business that's been operational on that site for a number of years. I would expect the recommendation from staff would have been different if it had been an application for a new use, a new business. In fact, the little daycare center right down the road is the daycare I went to as a child, and I remember that site even as a 5-year-old, remember very clearly what that site looked like. So your points are very well taken. I think that the recommendation to put a 12-month cap on it gives the board another opportunity, to the commissioner's point, to take another look at it. So, but thank you for your comments today. And just one suggestion that I would make that may be helpful for us as staff on this one, Commissioner Gambrill, if we could add a timeline, a date by which they need to come into compliance with the parking and those sorts of things, that would be helpful.
And that was part of my motion, to give them a year to come into compliance with the parking, down to the 150, just because they have to work with magistrate court to get their vehicles removed, et cetera.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you. Is that being added to the motion? Okay, thank you. All right, is there any further discussion? We'll call the question. All right, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to announce that. The vote passes 4-1 with Chairwoman Cupid in opposition. Thank you.
And then I'd like to make the motion for SLUP 3 of 2021, which is the companion to Z48 of 2021 that we just heard. I'd like to make a motion to recommend deletion, or I'm sorry, never mind that part, that the record service hours to be Monday through Sunday from 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. And then all staff comments and recommendations approved with Z48 of 2021 and limit it to 12 months.
Okay. And again, just a commissioner, again, it concerns me that residents live next door and have this service going on until 11 p.m. at night. I would ask that you perhaps consider 11 p.m. maybe on the weekend, but at least during the weekday, because I know children live there and are attending school, for us to consider an earlier time for them to end during the week.
So
And
what would you like to suggest?
I would suggest no later than 9 p.m. Also, I just want to make sure for the last case, did we capture the EPA comment? Okay, just want to make sure.
And then what would you like to see for Saturday and Sunday?
Again, well, Sundays, again, it's before school, but I just, Saturday may be more appropriate for 11 p.m., but just, Monday through Friday, I would think. At least Monday, Sunday.
Would there be a consideration for no business or closed on Sundays?
The only concern is we can't determine when a car needs to be towed.
Right.
Whether it's from an accident or such. So
But they're not the
do
only
we
towing
restrict
service.
any other towing companies, John, as far as their ability to tow on Sundays?
Not that I can remember, Commissioner Gambrill.
I know, at least as a District 4 Commissioner, we had another towing site, but it wasn't this close to residential, like by a train track.
So I'd like to amend my motion for the record service hours to be Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11, and then Sunday from 12 to 6.
All right, does that conclude your motion, Commissioner? All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or further discussion? All right, call the question. The motion passes 4-1 with Chairwoman Cupid in opposition.
Okay, going back to the item that was pulled off consent, other business, item number 21 of 2022 is to consider a site plan and stipulation amendment for Resonant, Inc. regarding rezoning application Z155 of 2004. The property is located on the north and west sides of Lake Drive, south of Jamerson Road, in land lot 86 of the 16th District. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business, item number 21? Let the record show there's no one here opposed.
All right, Kevin, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Board, Kevin Moore here on behalf of Resonant, Cobb, longtime corporate citizen of Cobb County. Resonant is a company that is a fragrance manufacturer. So what that means is the fragrance in perfumes and lotions and soaps and candles and things like that that you smell, that has to be manufactured. And Resonant is responsible for most of that, and is a fantastic company and has been a long time corporate citizen of Cobb County at this, and specifically at this location since 2004 on Lake Drive at its intersection with Dean. They have, over the period of time since 2004, have had various site plan and stipulation approvals as they've continued to expand their business and their ability to operate at this location as they've acquired additional property and so forth. So you can see on your screen now is just simply the existing condition of the property and the buildings on the property. Over a number of years, there have been some site plan changes and adjustments with some expansions that have occurred or planned to occur. And what's before you today is another business application to approve a site plan that they've arrived at for their expansion, which would occur going forward once approved. So it's really more of a cleanup of past approvals that have occurred more than anything else. In fact, we've already, in 2020, Resonant applied and received approval for a variance to allow for a reduction of a landscape buffer against actual property that they already own that is adjacent to the main tract here, which is zoned heavy industrial. So this is the site plan that they've arrived at for their expansion. You'll see the what's outlined or colored in yellow is the expansion of about 60,000 additional square feet of warehouse and storage space as part of their ongoing business activities and production. So that's what's presented for your consideration here today. Again, it's really cleaning up the past approvals that have been adjusted through the years since 2004 as it relates to their overall site plan and their expansion plans. Here I can answer any questions. Both myself and Mr. Peterson are real familiar with this zoning history as well as Commissioner Burrow is as well. Thank you for your consideration today.
Thank you, Kevin. This was pulled off of consent because we had someone here who was in opposition. They aren't here anymore, so I'll go ahead and turn things over to the Commissioner.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, this was on consent, and the person that raised their hand in opposition is gone. I checked with the sheriff deputy, and they did leave. And we have no way of contacting them because no one signed in before the case was called, so. And I did not have any opposition emails or phone calls on this. I checked with the clerk's office and they hadn't received anything either. So I would ask staff's recommendation on this since it's another business. John?
Commissioner Burrow, the staff would recommend the board approve the request subject to Exhibit B, which includes the site plan labeled as Exhibit 1, received by the zoning division on April 12, 2022, subject to stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet, and the Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet.
And all other
And all previous
comments
conditions
not in conflict remain the same from the previous zoning. That would be my motion to approve with
Thank you.
those additions.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll second it. Are there any questions or comments? All right, we'll call the question.
Thank you,
Okay,
Commissioner.
the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Is that it?
That completes
I
your
can't
agenda?
believe it. That might be a record. So with that, our Board of Commissioners zoning hearing is closed for May 17th, 2022.